As we head into the weekend, Congress still has not cobbled together a stimulus deal to help the tens of millions of Americans who are struggling to make ends meet. I want to bring in Andrew now with more.
And Rich, all week we've been getting mixed messages from Washington on a possible stimulus deal. First, they're getting closer to a deal, then further apart. Today was Treasury Secretary and lead White House negotiator Steve Mnuchin's turn to dash hopes. He accused House Speaker Nancy Pelosi of having dug in on her position and said significant differences between the sides remain. Pelosi has rejected earlier offers of a deal under $1 trillion and has been fighting for aid to states and cities, something Mnuchin had reportedly been willing to consider, but that Senate Republicans could not stomach. Pelosi also accused President Trump of sending wildly mixed messages about a possible deal. For his part, Trump accused Pelosi of playing politics, that she thinks not getting a deal done works better for Democrats on Election Day. He also accused Pelosi of trying to bail out Democratic-run cities. Though he didn't say so last night, Trump is usually referring to New York City in those types of moments. He also mentioned the city in another context last night.
If you go and look at what's happened to New York, it's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. And when you talk about plexiglass, these are restaurants that are dying. These are businesses with no money.
Our next guest represents a portion of New York City. Congressman Adriano Espaillat is a Democrat representing the 13th District. That's Upper Manhattan and the West Bronx. Congressman, thanks for joining us. I guess since, as the president said, everyone is leaving the city, your district by now is nothing but empty parking spots and tumbleweed, right? Or did the president get that wrong last night?
Well, I tell you, I just came from Melba's restaurant in Harlem, and she does have the plexiglass, and I felt kind of safe. I felt, I had a great oxtail with rice and some beans, and I felt safe because she had that plexiglass, and I'll probably go back there, as everybody should go back there. Businesses should protect their clients and their customers, and I think it's important that the city provides that kind of protection. So, no, it's not a ghost town. He probably hasn't been here in a while since he moved to Florida. But I tell you what, New York City fought like hell to bring down its numbers, and we see what's happening at the rest of the country, states across the country where the virus and the pandemic is raging. We feel sorry and we're hopeful that we could keep our numbers low, but we will take the measures to make sure that people don't die. The important thing, above all, is to keep people safe and prevent them from dying. 220,000 is a bit too much. It will balloon to maybe 400,000. We must keep our families safe. And yes, the economy as well. We should worry about that, but we should take all the measures.
Now, what the president said about restaurants and businesses does feel a little bit closer to true. Many are struggling. I'm wondering what the climate is like for small businesses in your district right now. What's the biggest hurdle they face? And if a stimulus deal gets done, will that actually be enough to help them or save them?
Well, they're running like at a 30% drop in business. They did come back up during the summer months. And now as the winter approaches, they're facing major hurdles. And remember, the first PPP program came in right at the beginning pretty much of the pandemic, when people were just pretty much taking care of their employees, maybe cleaning up, sanitizing their establishment. But now that they're trying to open, they need another round. This is really when they need the help right this moment. And I think that we should provide another stimulus package with PPP and grants for small businesses across America.
So you've been part of this fight in Congress. The fight's been going on for months. Democrats passed another stimulus bill months ago. Republicans seem to want less than Democrats want in any deal. A lot of people are starting to say, though, that a bad deal is better than no deal at all. It gets some help where it's needed. Are you one of those voices? Would you be willing to settle for less just to get some help in front of people? And do you think we'll get a deal eventually?
I think we'll get a deal eventually, but I'm not willing to decide who dies in the Titanic or who lives. I think everybody should live. And I think all businesses should get a fair shake to survive. Certainly, we proposed back 4 months ago now. We're not talking a week or two ago. 4 months ago, we proposed the HEROES Act, a very ambitious plan, as it should be for the American people, that provided not only the PPP program for small businesses, rental assistance for tenant, the $600 stimulus unemployment benefit, another round of the stimulus check for adults and children. It provided also help for states and municipalities. That has to be there, because no matter how much money we provide for the states or the cities, they're going bankrupt. And no matter how much money we provide, they're going to have to make deep cuts into very important programs locally that will impact families across those states and cities. So we felt back then, as we feel now, that the HEROES Act, which was a $3 trillion initiative, was a good one. Now, we compromised. We went back to the table and we say, okay, it cannot be $3 trillion. Let's do just slightly over $2 trillion, and let's get something done. And yet, even then, the Senate and the White House refuses to help the American people. So clearly the ball is in their court. Mitch McConnell seems to think that it's a $500 billion effort that should happen, because he's got senators that cannot withstand that kind of vote in a competitive election. And the president is back and forth everywhere. Nobody really understands what he wants. So we're very clear as a Democratic caucus in the House of Representatives that the American people deserve more.
You've been talking to your constituents throughout all of this, many of them impacted by the lack of a new stimulus. I'm wondering if you can share any of their stories with us, people who have really faced a difficult road because there hasn't been additional funding.
People are concerned and worried about paying rent. I have a district that has a high number of renters. Many of those folks, by the way, lost someone in their family, were not able to say goodbye to them appropriately, or maybe lost their job or lost their business, or were in their apartments with their children for 4 months. And so they're vulnerable. They're very traumatized. And now they're backed up in rent 4, 5, 6 months. They don't know where they're going to get the next check to pay their rent when the landlord eventually shows up and try to ask for that money, because there is a moratorium on the rent, but eventually the landlord will be at your doorstep asking for that rent. And so they're concerned about that. The unemployment benefit, the $600, people want it back. And yes, the small businesses want another round of PPPs or grants for them to get up and going. So this is fair. You know, we bailed out Wall Street. We bailed out Detroit. We just bailed out, to some degree, the airline industry. Why not bail out Main Street?
Apologize. Unfortunately, we are out of time. We'll have to leave it there, but really appreciate the time. Best of luck to you and to your constituents. Congressman Adriano Espaillat, 13th
Thank you
District
so much.
Democrat from New York. Thank you. Rich,
Thank
back to you.
Andrew, thank you. When we come back, highlights of the final Senate debate for Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett. And just like everything else involved in this nomination, both sides couldn't find much to agree on.